what I want to dive into today is talking about the more of the sales process. And when I say sales, it's not necessarily, what questions to ask. It's not necessarily, okay, here's the magic script or anything like that, but really about taking somebody down the process from going from a prospect who's mildly interested in who you are, what you do, what you have to offer, and then taking them down that journey to become not just a paying client, but an advocate for you, a referral source. Now, this is something that has come up dozens of times over the past several weeks with all different types of advisors, whether you're focused on the life insurance space, whether you're more in the annuity space, whether you're looking for AUM. We've been noticing a trend and a pattern with how or where prospects drop off, or what, even if somebody's going down the sales process, all of a sudden they're going to a different advisor, or they love what you're saying, they take your plan to their existing financial planner. And so I want to walk through the mental journey that somebody goes down and how to combat some of those different experiences where somebody's like, yeah, this sounds good, but I'll wait to implement that, or I'll read the book and I'll get back to you, or hey, I'll take a look at some material, a white paper, whatever, and then let's talk in a couple weeks, a couple months, a couple years, whatever it might be. Now, let me give you a quick scenario of two different ends of the spectrum where I've seen this happen, specifically last week when talking with advisors. So the first one comes from an advisor who is he's been very consistent inside of the industry. He's done very well at sales. He's done a lot of referrals, a lot of word of mouth, and that's typically where he's got his clients from. And so as he's going out and he's starting the outbound, or I guess the digital outreach process on the marketing side, and trying to attract more cold prospects in the door, this is where he's noticing some hangups inside of his sales process. So the scenario that he gave me was, he's like, man, I've got two different things that I'm up against. So number one, I get on the phone with somebody, they requested a lead magnet, they raised their hand digitally, said they're interested. I give them a call, or they set a meeting, and we have a conversation, and we talk for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And then after that, we set our next appointment. And then the next appointment might go well. And then after that, we have another appointment, then another appointment, then another appointment. And then after 5 or 6 meetings, that person goes dead. And I was like, okay, well, let's dive into that in a little bit more detail so we can understand where exactly the kinks in the hose are. And so he walked me through, number one, when he's going through, let's say, let's use the scenario where somebody's got 5, 6, 7 meetings with him, and then they go different directions. So what would happen is he would get on the phone with somebody, and this is in the discovery phase. So this person doesn't really know the advisor doesn't really know the prospect. And so as they got on that discovery call, there was a lot of rapport building where he was like, man, we talked for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. And a lot of it is just like, hey, tell me about yourself, Mr. Prospect, Mrs. Prospect. What do you do for a living? Tell me about your family. What are your hobbies? And so they would go through this process where literally it's a solid half hour or more of rapport building where they're telling each other stories. And then at the end of that, he's like, hey, so I didn't really get a lot of time to dive into what exactly I do or how I can help you. Would you be open to a follow-up meeting? So they'd set that follow-up meeting, and then in the next meeting, it'd be a little bit more detail-oriented about, hey, life insurance, IULs, whole life, tax-free retirement, that kind of stuff. And then he's like, okay, if this sounds interesting to you, would you be open to another meeting? So they would set another meeting. And on that third meeting, they would go through the financial intake form process where they're like, okay, how much do you have for retirement savings? What does your budget look like? Tell me about your expenses. Tell me about your goals. And in that third meeting together, that's where they're going through that process of filling out a financial intake form together. Now in the fourth meeting, that's when they go start doing a little bit of price shopping in terms of different life insurance solutions, whether it's term, whether it's permanent. And he positions himself as a broker. So he's like, hey, I've got access to, hundreds of different life insurance carriers. So let's go find the carrier that's going to be the best fit for you, both with your needs and your budget. Then in the fifth meeting, that's where like, okay, let's explore our options again. Then in the sixth meeting, what happened a handful of times is that somebody would go through, get to that sixth meeting, and then they're like, man, this is great. I actually just showed this to my financial planner, and we decided to implement this scenario that you showed. Thanks for your help. I appreciate it. Like, talk to you later, right? And then in that same exact process, something else would happen where they'd have a good first meeting, 30 to 45 minutes of rapport building. They'd get into that second meeting, and it would potentially go well. They would start talking about what the advisor did, but then that person would drop off, right? And so he was experiencing the same thing over and over and over again, to the point where, okay, it's not necessarily that Like nothing's, the world isn't ending. It's too bad that those cases didn't close, but let's talk about why that didn't work. Now, in another scenario, I'll talk to you about another advisor who would go through this process where he's doing the same exact thing. He's got rapport building going on in the first meeting. In the second meeting, he's showing different illustrations. In the third meeting, he's hoping to be filling out applications and paperwork, right? Now, what he found in that scenario is that he would go through this process. He would show the illustrations, and the guy's like, "Yeah, that looks good." Like, and the advisor would ask, like, "Hey, does this make sense? Like, did the numbers look good?" And he's like, "Yeah, the numbers look good." But then what would happen after that second meeting is that the prospect would essentially just either go dormant. They would be still corresponding with the advisor saying, "Yeah, give me a little bit of time. Let me understand this. And then, yeah, I think I want to implement this, but let me get back to you, right? Let me think about it. Let's circle back here in 6 months after X, Y, and Z happens." Now, in both of these scenarios, and those same scenarios have repeated themselves. I would honestly say probably 6 or 7 times over the last couple of weeks, where we would have prospects either drop off too soon in the process, or they would carry on so far down the process that they would go talk to another advisor, and then the advisor would either implement that strategy that the advisor was presenting, or the other advisor they spoke with would go in and they would present a different scenario and close the client on that different scenario. And so a couple of things that I want to point out inside of this process is that, number one of the things that you have to remember and recognize throughout the sales process is that you need to be exercising parental authority and control over your prospects. These prospects want to be led. They want to be shown the path to financial prosperity. And you, as the advisor, you, as the agent, you are that Sherpa. You are that financial guide who is going to hold their hand and take them down that process. Now, think about that scenario as if you're climbing Mount Everest, right? I don't care how experienced you are as a hiker. If you hire a guide and you come to a fork in the path and the guide says to go left as opposed to right, that hiker isn't going to be like, "Well, based on my experience or based on what my friends have said, I think we should go down the path to the right." No, you are the one who hired that guide. So you're going to be doing what the guide says, right? You're going to be going down that path. You, as the advisor, you, as the agent, need to have that path to prosperity mapped out for this particular prospect. So how do we figure out what that path is? Number one, inside of the initial conversations with that prospect, you need to be, number one, figuring out where exactly they want to go. What keeps them up at night? What is that thing? What is that pain point in their life that they recognize as the number one financial pain point? Now, that could be tax-free retirement, that could be running out of money, that could be a healthcare risk, that can be market volatility. The list goes on and on. But inside of that discovery process, that is where you have to identify what we call is the big domino. Now, the big domino is essentially that domino where if you can knock down this domino, all other objections, all other misconceptions that they have about either what you do, your products, your services, whatever, all of those become irrelevant because you can solve the big domino. You can knock down this big domino. So inside of that discovery call, once somebody has requested that lead magnet, that is your number one goal and objective, is to figure out what their big domino is. From there, you can start pivoting the conversation and positioning yourself as the authority figure that can solve this big domino. Now, inside of this process, where I have an issue with that advisor, and this is what we identified, where the guy was getting down to 6-7 meetings with the advisor and then going a different direction, is that inside of this process, he wasn't doing what I call throwing rocks at his competition. Now, throwing rocks is essentially helping your prospects and clients understand how you are different than anybody else that's out there. I'll give you an example inside of my world. So when it comes to what we do inside of the LinkedIn marketing space, number one is we throw rocks at things like Facebook ads. Now, are Facebook ads bad? No, they're not necessarily bad. But the thing that I throw rocks at is that a lot of agents and a lot of advisors will spend a lot of money on ads and give a lot of money to Mark Zuckerberg without understanding what the rest of the process is going to look like, or exactly how to map out that marketing campaign so that it actually produces results. So we're throwing rocks saying, hey, before you start running ads, make sure that you have a marketing system dialed in to where when you turn on ads, it's just like pouring gasoline on a fire. But if you pour gasoline on a bunch of wood that doesn't have a spark, nothing's going to happen, right? You're going to end up wasting a lot of money in the process. Now, diving deeper, we're going to be throwing rocks at a lot of LinkedIn marketing programs out there where essentially all they do is tell you to connect with somebody, send them a bunch of messages, and then hopefully you land some meetings, right? You have to have the funnels, you have to have the lead magnets, you have to have the follow-up systems, or else you're not going to be producing the results that you want. So we're actively inside of our marketing, inside of our sales calls, we are actively throwing rocks at our competition. Now, you in the financial space, you in the insurance space, you have to identify what exactly you're throwing rocks at. Okay. So let's say that one of the cases that came up recently was one of the advisors was pitching an overfunded IUL. I think it was an overfunded IUL. And eventually what happened after they went through the meetings, after they went through the sales process, is the prospect went to another advisor who was talking about doing a mega backdoor Roth IRA strategy or something like that, right? And so inside of that conversation, the advisor did not throw rocks at the other advisors and at those other strategies to position why life insurance would be such a good fit inside of there. You have to be showing these individuals why you are the right person to solve their financial pain points, whether it's pitching against the market, pitching against market volatility, pitching against whatever it might be. You have to be identifying that and preaching that early inside of the sales process. So one of our advisors, we're actively going through revamping her sales process, revamping her CRM, her workflows, and everything like that. So inside of sales call number one, this is almost like sales call number one is that discovery phase. This is where she's going in, and the main topic of that conversation is number one, asking those open-ended questions. What do you want to accomplish? What can I help you with? What are you looking to do with retirement? There's a reason why we're talking. There's a reason why you requested that lead magnet. What is that reason? You have to identify that. Now, inside of that, the second part of that conversation is taking them through and helping them understand why you are different. What's different about your process? What's different about your strategies? What's different about your solutions? And the goal of that conversation is to get them to show up to that next meeting, to book that next meeting and show up with an agenda. There has to be something that they're coming to that meeting for, whether it's going to be diving into more of the process, more of the planning, more of the blueprint. That is going to start becoming unique to you and your solutions and unique to you and your positioning. But you, again, exercising that parental control and that parental authority, you have to help them understand inside of meeting two, this is why you're showing up. This is what we're going to be talking about. This is what we're going to be uncovering for you. This is how we're going to help you solve that number one pain point that you identified. Now, what I like is if you set up that discovery call and that discovery meeting the right way, this gives you the ability to then ask for additional information from that prospect. So inside of this advisor's workflow, inside of our sales process that we revamped, after that first discovery meeting, we are sending a financial intake form, a questionnaire over to that prospect that they can then fill out so that the advisor can start going down and developing a blueprint for that individual. So with that being said, one of the things that this advisor was doing before we started reworking everything was she was asking for a ton of information inside of this questionnaire. The questionnaire was probably, I want to say it was 120 to maybe 150 questions long. And it got to the point, it was so robust that the prospect, it created this perception that they almost had to take on a full-time job or a part-time job just to complete the questionnaire. And so they noticed that a lot of people, great discovery call, great first meeting, but they would never fill out that questionnaire. They would always be dropping off. So what did we do? Instead of asking for all of that information inside of that intake form, inside of that questionnaire, hey, let's go ahead and let's parcel that out. Let's split that out into two different intake forms so that number one, they don't feel like they have to take on a part-time job to fill it out, but you can still get the critical information that you need in order to continue the planning process. So before, that questionnaire was asking for, not just names, birthday, income, 401k amounts, things like that, but asking them to upload like 2 years of tax returns, asking them to talk about their hobbies, their interests, their goals, it went on and on. Like I said, 120 to 150 questions. So in splitting that out, we're asking for in that first intake form, just the essential information that we need in order to get somewhat of an idea on where we can go to continue that planning process. So yes, getting names, getting birthdays, definitely important so we can figure out what we're working with. But instead of asking for interests, instead of asking for hobbies, that can all come as part of the conversation. That can all come as part of just talking with somebody and building rapport, right? But we're keeping that rapport super short. We're keeping that rapport building to maybe 5 minutes max on that initial discovery call. But inside of that questionnaire that we're sending out, it's asking for, hey, what are you looking to do with retirement planning? What are you hoping to accomplish? What keeps you up at night? How much do you have in your 401k? How much are your investment accounts? Now, we're not asking for documents. We're not saying, hey, divulge all of your financial skeletons in your closet. But again, getting enough information that when we show up to that next meeting, both the prospect and the advisor have an idea of what we can start developing as that blueprint. Now, inside of that second meeting, we are not going in and we're not showing illustrations. We're not going in and we're not overwhelming them with just a bunch of, illustrations today for IUL whole life. We're talking about like 50, 60, 70 pages long, depending on your carrier. That's going to overwhelm your client. That's going to overwhelm the prospect to the point where they don't know where they're supposed to be looking. So inside of this second meeting, all we're doing is helping them to start shape what you can do for them. So if they say that they have $1 million inside of their 401k, we're going to show them, hey, inside of like, once you get to retirement, did you know that you're going to owe, 20, 30, 40% of your 401k to Uncle Sam? Wouldn't you like to solve that? Wouldn't you like to keep more of your hard-earned money? Man, that sounds great. I'd love to explore that. Okay. So now we're getting their buy-in. Again, we know what their big domino is based on the initial discovery call. And then again, we're solidifying what that big domino is inside of that second meeting so that we can, again, we can sink our teeth into the prospect and get them to emotionally buy into what exactly it is that you're doing. Again, how are you different than the competition? A lot of these people, especially if they're a high value client, they've got a lot of money, they're making a lot of money, they're going to have a financial planner, a retirement planner, a life insurance agent, or at least know those individuals, those professionals, right? If you're successful, chances are you've got that person in your pocket. You have to get them to emotionally buy into what it is that you're proposing. One of the analogies that I love, that I've heard a lot over the past couple of weeks, is that even if somebody has a primary care physician, right? Let's say that they're going into the doctor. Let's say you're diagnosed with a terminal illness. Wouldn't you seek the advice of a specialist? Wouldn't you get a second opinion? But that you're coming in as that specialist to solve that domino. Again, they requested the information. They showed up for that meeting. So exercise that parental control, that parental authority, so that you can show them how you are different and how you're going to solve that pain point. So going back to this, inside of that second meeting, we are going through and we're starting to map out where they are today and where they can go. What is that financial picture? What is that financial blueprint going to look like as you continue down this process? Again, we're not showing illustrations inside of the second meeting. Now, for this particular advisor, and again, what I want you to do is develop a sales framework, right? You can pivot when you need to. You can build in different elements, or you can pull out different ingredients depending on what your particular recipe is. But after this second meeting, we're setting the expectation with that prospect that, hey, in order to truly develop a financial blueprint, in order to develop something that's unique to you, unique to your goals, I need more of your financial information. I need to see exactly what I'm working with. So we set the expectation after that second meeting that we're going to send them a second link, a second landing page that's going to be a document upload center. Now, inside of this document upload center, that's where we're asking for 2 years of tax returns. That's where we're asking for their investment statements. That's where we're asking for any life insurance policy statements, any annuity statements, any long-term care statements. Again, if you build that rapport and you set yourself up as that subject matter expert, this all of a sudden becomes extremely easy because that's something that they expect. If you're going to be doing financial work for them, of course you have to know what they paid in taxes over the past couple of years. Of course, you're going to need to know exactly what's in their investment accounts. So between the meeting number 2 and meeting number 3, number 1, they're sending that document upload center link. Now, coupled with that is that once somebody submits their documents, there's a 2-week buffer between when they can have their next meeting, when they can have that third meeting. So, and that's going to give the advisor ample time to be able to gather the information, to start working through different reports, using different software to analyze where they're at, maybe even wrapping in different illustrations. Now, I want to throw in a word of caution there, is that if you, in any stage of this process, if you're just hoping to sell off of an illustration, you may experience wins every now and then, but what's going to happen more often than not is you're just going to confuse the prospect, because again, what are they going to, if you're showing an illustration, what are they going to focus on? They're going to focus on life insurance, right? They're going to focus on the things that in the back of their mind, they're like, man, I heard life insurance is bad. I heard life insurance is not a good retirement investment tool. I heard whatever it might be. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we strategically place this information in front of this person so that we are sinking our teeth in there. We're getting that emotional buy-in so that by the time that you're saying, yes, this is life insurance, that obstacle, that objection, that's irrelevant. They don't care what the product is. In all reality, they don't care what that product is that they're buying, as long as that solution is there that's going to solve their financial pain points. It's going to help them sleep better at night. So we go through, we have meeting number 2, we set the expectation that meeting number 3 is going to dive into more of their specific details. In order to do that, we've got to have their documents. We got to understand exactly where they're at. So we give them that document upload center link. They give us all the statements. There's a 2-week buffer between meeting number 3 and now meeting number 3 is where we are really getting that buy-in. Meeting number 3 is where we are going through and we are showing them exactly what their financial life is going to look like after they implement these solutions. Now, at this point, in between meeting 3 and meeting number 4, this is where we're going to start having some differing opinions depending on, how bought in is the client, how gung-ho are they, how ready are they to go, or do they need to know a little bit more before you start presenting the illustrations and getting those applications signed. That's where I need you to be extremely careful and extremely cognizant of where each prospect is at. So with this advisor that I've been walking through, inside of meeting number 4, that's where they're running through the exact process, right? This is where they're going to be showing the illustrations, whether it's annuities, whether it's life insurance, whether it's going to be, moving over AUM, whatever it might be. That's where they're going to be doing that so that they can start going through the application process. But that cannot happen until you have that emotional buy-in from that prospect. So I want to show you guys, let me see if I can pull this up. I wanted to show you guys what the actual intake forms look like. So this advisor has a couple of different intake forms that they can use. There's a digital copy and there's an actual a paper copy as well, like a PDF, right? So inside of this financial intake form, this questionnaire is probably about 60 questions long. Again, still getting all relevant information. And this is something where at first the advisor's like, man, do I need to have some more meetings before I get this information? Is this too soon? Is it too late? What I would say is that when these individuals are coming to you, they are coming to you for a reason. You are the expert. You are the authority figure. You have earned the right to be able to ask these questions. You can't do a financial plan unless they give you information, right? So this is almost like a test to see how serious somebody is as well. A lot of advisors are going to get nervous about sending somebody an intake form because they're like, man, what if they don't fill it out? Should I just do this over the phone? You can do it over the phone, but this is almost like a litmus test to see who's actually serious about the planning process. So they'll go through here. It honestly takes, like it says, 7+ minutes down here at the bottom, about 10 minutes, right? We're not telling them to take on a part-time job, but hey, if you are serious about getting your financial plan or your financial blueprint, your retirement blueprint done, I've got to know stuff about you. I have to know what your financial picture looks like before I can start putting the jigsaw pieces together. So after this, again, the next meeting has already been set. After after the second meeting with this individual, that's where we're going to take them over to that document upload center. Now, what I'm showing you on the screen right now isn't something that you have to copy exactly, right? You don't have to necessarily have a document upload center where you can send somebody. So I will tell you that this was built on Jotform. You can do the same thing inside of Typeform. You can just have somebody email you over documents, but you have to have a process for them to facilitate them getting you over these documents. Again, asking for this information. There's a fine dance that we always have to play with our prospects, whether it's on the marketing side or the sales side. So on the marketing side, I'll give you an example. Typically, the more information you ask from somebody, the less people are going to fill it out, right? So the way that we combat that is if we give somebody a lead magnet that's super valuable, we have earned the right to ask them more information. So when we go out with our marketing campaigns and we're asking for, or we're telling somebody we'll send them a book, right? We're going to spend money on this book. We're going to ship this physical book out to you. I have earned the right, Mr. Prospect, Mrs. Prospect, to ask you for your phone number, your email address, your physical address, your name, right? I've earned the right to be able to do that. That's where we see success on that side. Now, going down to the sales side, we have to earn the right to be able to ask for this information. That all comes as part of the sales process and building up that credibility and building up that authority as somebody who truly holds the keys to their financial success, to their retirement success, right? So as we're going through here, Again, we're looking for 2 years of tax returns, financial statements for all investment accounts, most recent statement for current annuities, most recent statement for life insurance, most recent statement for long-term care policies, and then social security statements if applicable, right? So again, jot form, type form, it takes maybe 10, 15 minutes to set this up. But if you have that process mapped out where you know exactly where you need to be taking somebody, that's what allows you to understand what questions to be asking inside of each meeting, whether it's the discovery phase, the first official meeting, the second meeting, the third meeting. But if you don't have that mapped out, all of a sudden it just becomes guesswork where you're just like, man, I hope they see how good this is going to be. I hope they see what I can do for them. I hope they fill out the information. You are the professional. You are the expert. You are the one who holds, again, you hold the keys to their retirement planning success, right? So make sure that you, inside of that sales process, that you position yourself accordingly. Now, with this is going to be, depending on where you're at in your business, this is going to be a little bit difficult because if your pipeline is empty, then that's where that anxiety starts to creep in, where it's like, okay, if I don't close this client, I don't know where my next client is. I don't know where that next person is going to be. So inside of that process, typically you're going to be a little bit more gun shy. You're going to clam up a little bit. You're not going to ask the detailed questions, or you're not going to dig to find out what their big domino is. What I want to tell you is that you have to have that abundance mentality where it's like, okay, I know I'm the expert. I know I'm the best at what I do. And so I need to know this, Mr. Prospect, Mrs. Prospect. I need to know what I'm working with if you truly want to see something that's going to benefit you, either for the rest of your life or for generations to come. Okay. So again, we get this document, we get all the documents back. And then from there, we're setting up that next meeting. We've already told them, hey, inside of this third meeting, when we meet next time, because I have all your information, I can show you something that's customized to you and your unique situation with your unique goals. This is what I need in order to get to that next step. If you don't want to do the work, I can't want it more than you do. I can't want this and want your retirement success more than you do. So I've got to get this information back, right? But again, building up that credibility, throwing rocks at your competition each and every step along the way. So let me know if that makes sense. Let me know what questions you guys have about that. I know we've had a number of one-on-one conversations with each of you, diving into that sales process, diving into, what that workflow looks like, or the campaign flows looks like once somebody has a discovery call. This is all stuff that we're going to be baking into that lead generation and sales Bible that we started creating. So we're going to dive into, a lot of it is built out right now from the pre-sales process. So getting somebody in the door. Once somebody requests information, what exactly are you doing? What questions can you be asking? How do you get them to that next meeting? So the rest of the build out is going to go deeper into that sales process. Now, one of the things that I want you guys to keep in the back of your minds also is that once somebody has requested information from you, you have earned the right to be able to follow up with that individual. I had 4 calls last week with advisors who have generated a good number of leads through the various campaigns that are running. Now, what they're all talking about, or one of the common hiccups that came up was, man, I can't get a hold of this person. They requested this, or they canceled their discovery call, and I can't get a hold of them. And so what we do is we start diving into, okay, what did you do to try to get a hold of them? What are you doing to get their attention again? What are you doing to respark that interest? And a lot of times what I'm seeing is it's one phone call, it's one email, it's one text, it's one single event, hoping that somebody's going to have that light bulb moment where they're just like, oh, shoot, this is why I need to meet with John or Susie or whoever you are, right? What I will tell you is that inside of this process, the majority of these folks that you contact, whether it's going to be on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or direct mail or through seminars or whatever, they have an interest, but they simply don't know what they don't know. And so your goal as the advisor, a lot of advisors will look at themselves as salespeople. In reality, you're all marketers. You are all marketers. That's something that if you can grasp that, if you can really, burn that into your core, that you are a marketer, that is going to change your business exponentially. Because then all of a sudden your focus, if the marketing process is done the right way and you do enough to set yourself apart from your competition, if you are setting yourself up as that subject matter expert, if you're truly providing value and educating these prospects on why exactly they need to meet with you, that sales process is going to be exponentially easier because they've already bought in. So instead of just getting somebody to digitally raise their hand once and say, yeah, I'm kind of interested in this. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, call me if you need me. All right, I'm here whenever you want to do retirement planning. Instead of being so passive in that conversation, if you are actively going out and you are helping them have those epiphanies, those light bulb moments to where they're like, oh, this is why market protection is so important, right? We all have a gift coming up at the end of 2025 with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act sunsetting. If you focus on tax planning as part of your overall retirement planning, you have been given a gift by Congress that you all of a sudden you have real urgency baked into the tax code where the sunset is going to happen, right? Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is going to expire, rates are going to revert back to where they were before. You have been given a window, you've been given a gift to where you can all of a sudden use that as a leverage point to say, hey, this is why you need to be doing retirement planning now. This is why you need to set yourself up for tax-free retirement because you don't know where taxes are going to be in the future. Look, end of 2025, they're going to be higher unless Democrats and Republicans can come to an agreement. How often are they agreeing on anything these days? And so you can use that as leverage to create that sense of urgency to help them understand, like, if you're going to do an IRA conversion, if you're going to roll over a 401k, now's the time to be able to position yourself for tax-free retirement. So use those things as leverage to be able to help these individuals understand why they need to be doing that planning today, as opposed to waiting until retirement's right around the corner. Now, that can come in the shape of social media posts. You can be just hammering content on that specifically. You can do that inside of email marketing. You can do that inside of webinars. You can do that inside of whatever it might be. But if you're taking that passive approach and you're just like, yep, I hope it fills up. I hope my pipeline fills up. I've generated 50 leads, but I hope they find their way back to me. Hope is a terrible marketing strategy. I tried it for years. It doesn't work. I would rather engineer my success. And so every time I have a free moment in the day, it's geared towards marketing. It's geared towards educating. It's geared toward putting something out there where I may not see the returns on that action for weeks, if not months, but I promise we all know the power of compound interest inside of the financial world, right? We all live it, we all breathe it, we all preach it. Don't forget the power of compound marketing. Don't forget that when you put out a post, let's say that you get 100 views on that post. That's still 100 people that saw that, and you don't know who that is. You don't know who's looking. You don't know who is, right at that tipping point. But if you keep getting out there, if you keep breaking out of your shell to be able to get that value out there, that education out there, that will pay dividends in the long run. We had something happen with one of our advisors a couple of weeks ago where we've been, just religiously marketing emails. We've been religiously posting. Now, all of a sudden, somebody comes out of the woodwork who's like, man, I've been seeing your content for years. Yeah, I just wasn't sure it wasn't the right time, whatever it was, but I saw this and that's what made me want to reach out to you. I saw this and that's what made me want to book an appointment with you or set a meeting for you. And then from there, again, that sales process becomes exponentially easier because they've already bought into what you do. They've seen years or months or weeks worth of content, of valuable information, educating them, indoctrinating them, nurturing them to where they've already bought into that process to some degree. Now, again, you still have to have your sales framework. You can't just hope to stumble across layup clients to where you get on one call and they're just like, yep, I was actually looking to implement an annuity. What you got? I was actually looking to overfund an IUL policy. What do you got? Or a LERP, right? We've actually had that happen where somebody shows up on a discovery call and they're like, yeah, I'm looking to implement a LERP. They use that acronym. That doesn't happen as much as we all would like it to, and it won't happen as much as we all want it to. But if you consistently push that content out there, if you consistently get out there, get in the open, get in front of your prospects, then all of a sudden you've got your sales process baked out to where as that financial Sherpa, as that financial guide, you know exactly where you're going to be taking these people. It becomes exponentially easier, and that compound effect of marketing is going to keep growing. It's going to keep building. It's like a snowball rolling down a mountain, right? It may be small at first. You've got this tiny, fist-sized snowball that's starting to roll down. But if you keep going, all of a sudden it builds. And all of a sudden that pipeline keeps filling up. You've got that abundance mentality where you're going to be busier than you could ever want to be, right? So I hope that was helpful. Let me know what questions you guys have. I appreciate you all. Again, next week is going to be starting at 10 a.m. Pacific time, all right? I'll make an announcement in the community, but appreciate you all, and I'll talk to you soon.